I'm Jasmine, and I'll be talking about section 7.4%. Okay, so starting off with percents, we're going to write each ratio as a percent. So first we have 37 over 40 equals our percent. So one way we could do this is write 37 over 40 is equal to R over 100. We have 100 right here, and we need to get R by itself. So we multiply 100 by both sides to get R by itself. Cancel out that 100. So then we can move the R to the front of the equation to make it easier. So we'll have R equals 100 times 37 over 40. So then we'll have basically 100 over 1, because any number over 1 is itself, times 37 over 40. You can cancel those out by 5, which gives you 20. And then you can multiply 20 Okay, so starting out with percents, we're going to write each ratio as a percent. So one way we could do this is write 37 over 40 equals our percent. So we'll have 37 over 40 equals R over 100. To get R beside itself, we'll multiply 100 by both sides. The 100s on the right will cancel out. We can put R in the front of the equation to make it easier. And then we'll have R equals 100 times 37 over 40. We can then split it up and make it 100 over 1, because any number over 1 will be itself. We can say 100 over 1 times 37 over 40. Now these two numbers have a factor involved. We can cancel out 20 and make this 5 over 1 and 37 over 2. So then it will be 5 over 1 times 37 over 2. 5 times 37 will give you 185. 1 times 2 will give you 2. So you'll have 185 over 2. We're looking for the percent of that number. So to find the percent of that number, you will divide 2 into 185. You can use a calculator. And that will give you 92.5%. And that is the answer. Okay, so next we are going to find the percent of the ratio 3 over 16. So another way we could do that is divide 16 into 3. But since we can't divide 16 into 3, we'll put the decimal and add a 0. So 16 goes into 30 one time. And 1 times 16 is 16. And then 30 minus 16 gives us 14. And then we'll have to add an extra 0 because 16 cannot go into 14. So then we will bring that 0 down, which gives us 140. So 16 goes into 140 8 times. 8 times 16 will give us 128. So then we will subtract that, which will give us 12. 16 cannot go into 12, so we will have to add another 0. Bring it down. 16 goes into 127 times. So then we'll multiply 16 by 7, which will give us 100 and, let's see, 12. So then we will subtract that from 120, which will give us 8. Add another 0, bring the 0 down, which will give us 80. 16 goes into 85 times. And 5 times 16 gives us 80, which gives us 0. So that gives us the number, which will be 0.1875. But that is not the percent. So to find the percent of that, we will have to move the decimal over. 2 spaces to the right to give us a percent number. And that will give us 18.75 as the percent of 3/16. So now we are writing the decimal as a percent. In the example before, I just showed you that when you get the decimal after dividing the number, you move the decimal point over 2 spaces to give you the percent. So we know that 1 whole is equal to 100%. So that means 2 wholes is equal to 200%. This is going to be more than 2 wholes because it's 2.15. So to find that, you know that 15 out of 100, since it's in the 100 place, gives you 15%. You can add this whole number together, 200 plus 15%, which gives us 15%. Or you can simply move the decimal spot over 2, like we talked about before, which also gives us a total of 215%. Okay, so moving on, we're trying to find out how many of the small rectangles must be shaded in to represent 37.5% of the large rectangle. So we have 8 going across, 5 going up and down. So we know that to find the area of this rectangle, we just multiply 8 times 5, which gives us 40. So we know that there's 40 small rectangles in this one large rectangle. So all we have to do is 37.5% is nothing but 37.5 over 100. So we need to get this to the denominator of 40 so we can see how many rectangles we need to shade in. So here, to get rid of this decimal, we can multiply that by 10 over 10, and we'll get 375 over 1,000, because that moves us over a decimal spot. And then after that, we can divide this by 125, which will give us 3 over 8. So now that we know 8 times 5 gives us 40, we can multiply this by 5 over 5, and then we'll get 15 over 40. So now that we know that, all we have to do is shade in 15 of the small rectangles, because we know since 15 is over the denominator of 40, that is all we need to have 37.5% of this rectangle shaded. Okay, so next we're going to do another problem. Anthony did homework at home with his household calculator. The problem said, what percent is 20 of 25? He entered 20 and divided it by 25. So he got 0.8 that showed up. He wrote 8% as the answer. What did Anthony do wrong? So 0.8 is also equal to 0.80. Even though the 0 isn't there on the calculator, it will always be equivalent to each other. So instead of writing 8%, he should have wrote 80%. Because even though you move that decimal place over, you think it's 8%, the 0 will always be there. So you've got to move it over twice, which gives you 80. But another way to find that out, instead of dividing on the calculator so you don't get confused, is just simply writing it out. X over 100 is equal to 20 over 25. We need to get x by itself, so we'll multiply 100 by both sides. And then we'll have x is equal to 100 over 1 times 20 over 25. So then these have something in common. So we go ahead and cancel those out. And then we'll have 4 over 1 because we can divide those by 25. And so that will give us 20 times 4, which will give us 80. And then 1 times 1, which will give us 1, which is equal to 80, which is equal to 80%. So sometimes the calculator can confuse you by the way it puts things. So you can just do it this way and it'll give you the exact answer because 80% is not equal to 8%. Not equal to 8%, but 0.8 is equal to 0.80. Okay, so Sue scored a 92% on her test, getting 23 questions right. So our question is, how many questions on the test were they in total? So we're going to let n equal to the number of questions on the test. So by letting n equal the number of questions on the test, we can set up a problem. So we can say 92 over 100, since that gives us 92%, is equal to 23 over n. Since she got 23 questions right, and we don't know how many questions total there were on the test. So we need to move n over here, cancel out. That will give us n times 0.92, which equals 23. So we will divide 0.92 from both sides. The 0.92s on top of each other will cancel out, which leaves n by itself. So now we will divide 23 by 0.92, and you can put that in a calculator, and it will give us the simple answer of 25, which will mean that she got 25 total questions on the test. So having 23 of those 25 gave her 92%. Okay, so now we're moving on to calculating compound interest. So value of investment of P dollars at the end of n years, if interest is paid at the annual rate of R% compounded T times a year, gives us the formula. I'll write it bigger. P1 plus R over 100 times T raised to the n times T. The principal, which is P, is what you start with. Okay, so given an example, we have P equals 100, R equals 8, compounded quarterly, so T equals 4. For the first one, you have 100 plus 100 times 0.02. That would give us 100 times 1 plus 0.02. For the second one, you have 1.02 times 1.02 times 100, which will give us 100 times 1.02 squared, because these two are the same thing, which will make that squared. Here, we have 100 times 1.02 times 1.02, which will give us 100 times 1.02 cubed, because this makes it cubed. Okay, so given another example, we have 18% compounded monthly, 2 years, limit of 10,000. A reminder of our equation is P times 1 plus R over 100 times T raised to the n times T. So now we just need to find out what everything represents. So we start off with 10,000, so that will give us P. And then we know that the rate is 18%, so we know that R will be equal to 18. We know that the time is 2 years, and that it is compounded monthly, which will give us 12. So putting all that into the equation, you have 10,000 times 1 plus R, which will be 18, over 100 times T, which is 12, which will be raised to n times t. And these two need to be swapped. Okay, so then after doing that, you can put all this carefully into your calculator or separator or however, but after putting it into your calculator, it will give you 10,000 times 1.015 raised to the 24, which will give you 14295.03. And that will be your final answer.